Max Verstappen is about to attempt something so dangerous, so unpredictable, and so completely outside Formula One, that even experienced endurance drivers are warning him about what could happen this weekend. Not Monaco. Not Silverstone. The Nürburgring. A 25-kilometer monster hidden inside a German forest, with more than 150 corners, brutal elevation changes, zero margin for error, and conditions so chaotic that drivers can face sunshine in one section of the track, and thick fog in another, at the exact same moment. And somehow, this story gets even crazier. Because Verstappen is not doing this with Red Bull. He is racing a Mercedes. A Red Bull driver. In a Mercedes-AMG GT3. At the most feared endurance race on Earth. But here's the part almost nobody is talking about. The last time Verstappen raced at the Nordschleife, he won. And now, more than 200,000 fans are expected to watch what could become one of the wildest weekends of his entire career. Because this is not just another race. This is 24 straight hours of darkness, traffic, fatigue, fog, mechanical failures, and survival. One mistake can destroy everything. One repair can cost entire laps. And Verstappen already learned that the hard way after leading earlier Nürburgring sessions before damage ruined the race completely. Now he comes back for the biggest challenge yet. And what happens this weekend could completely change how the motorsport world sees Max Verstappen forever. If you love Formula One stories that feel bigger than Formula One itself, subscribe to the channel. For most Formula One drivers, a free weekend means rest, simulator work, sponsor events, maybe a quiet reset before the next Grand Prix. For Max Verstappen, apparently, it means entering one of the most dangerous races in world motorsport. And the strange part is, this did not happen suddenly. The Nürburgring project had been quietly building for more than a year before the official announcement ever arrived. At first, people inside the paddock treated it like one of those fantasy rumors that sounds exciting but never becomes real. Verstappen had always talked about loving GT racing. He had always spent time in simulators driving the Nordschleife. But actually entering the 24-hour race felt different. Too complicated. Too risky. Too political. Because this race creates problems Formula One drivers normally never face. The first problem was the track itself. Nürburgring is not just another circuit drivers memorize over a few practice sessions. This place is so extreme that the organizers literally refuse to allow inexperienced drivers into the main event without previous race experience during the same season. Think about that. This is one of the only major races in the world where talent alone is not considered enough. You need proof that you can survive it first. And for Verstappen, that became a scheduling nightmare. Formula One calendars leave almost no freedom anymore. Every weekend is locked. Every travel window matters. Which meant Verstappen needed help just to become eligible for the race. According to reports surrounding the negotiations, Mercedes-Benz Chief Executive Officer Ola Kalinius and Toto Wolff personally requested adjustments to the Nürburgring Langstrecken Series schedule so Verstappen could fit the required preparation race between Formula One events. And honestly, that sounds almost impossible. Mercedes helping the biggest Red Bull star prepare for a non-Formula One race. But the deeper you look into this project, the stranger it becomes. Because Verstappen did not join an existing team as a guest driver. He created his own team for this challenge. Verstappen Racing. And then came the part nobody could believe. The car would be a Mercedes-AMG GT3. That image alone feels like something motorsport fans would have called fake a few years ago. Max Verstappen. Red Bull's champion. Driving a Mercedes. It almost looks like an alternate reality version of Formula One. But there is a very smart reason behind it. Mercedes-AMG GT3 machinery is considered one of the strongest endurance racing platforms in the world. Reliable. Stable over long distances. Extremely competitive in traffic. And at Nürburgring, reliability matters just as much as outright speed. Maybe even more. Because over 24 hours, the race becomes less about perfection, and more about surviving chaos better than everyone else. And this is where Verstappen made another crucial decision. He surrounded himself with specialists. Danny Juncadella, Jules Gounon, Lucas Auer. Drivers with years of GT and Nürburgring experience. That sounds simple on paper. But it changes everything strategically. Imagine trying to explore a massive forest in total darkness. Would you rather go alone, or with people who already know every dangerous corner by memory? That is basically what Verstappen is doing here. Because even though he is one of the greatest Formula One drivers on Earth, Nürburgring experience cannot be downloaded instantly. The Nordschleife punishes arrogance faster than almost any circuit in motorsport. And Verstappen knows that. Which might actually be the most dangerous thing for everyone else this weekend. The first time Verstappen truly understood what this race could become, everything went wrong. And weirdly, that may have helped him more than winning would have. Because the Nürburgring qualifying races in April exposed the exact reason this event terrifies even elite drivers. Not because the cars are slow. Not because the competition is weak. But because the track punishes tiny problems like they are disasters. The warning signs started immediately. Before one of the qualifying races had even begun, the number 3 Mercedes-AMG received a grid penalty after an incident involving teammate Lucas Auer during qualifying. Suddenly, the car dropped from 6th to 9th on the starting grid. And in most Formula 1 races, that would not sound catastrophic. At Nürburgring, it changes the entire opening phase. Because traffic here is relentless. Remember, this race has more than 160 cars on track at the same time. Fast GT3 machines. Amateur entries. Slower classes. Different braking zones. Different acceleration levels. Completely different race speeds. Imagine trying to sprint through a crowded shopping mall while every person around you moves unpredictably. That is the opening lap of Nürburgring. And this becomes especially dangerous early in the race, when everyone is fighting for track position before the field spreads out. But Verstappen adapted quickly. Actually, faster than most people expected. During the second qualifying race, he climbed through the field aggressively and eventually reached the lead. That moment changed the entire conversation around this project. Because up until then, many fans still treated Verstappen's Nürburgring appearance like a fun side adventure. A celebrity crossover. Something exciting, but not necessarily serious. Then he started leading experienced endurance specialists around the Nordschleife. And suddenly, people inside the paddock realized this might become a genuine victory attempt. But then came the moment that perfectly explains endurance racing. Not a crash. Not a huge mistake. A splitter failure. The front splitter broke during the race, forcing repairs that destroyed the team's chances completely. And this is where endurance racing becomes psychologically brutal. In Formula 1, damage usually creates immediate drama. A puncture. A collision. A retirement. At Nürburgring, problems can feel slower and crueler. You spend hours building momentum, only for one damaged component to erase everything gradually. The team lost laps inside the garage. By the time the car returned to the circuit, any realistic podium fight was already gone. Officially, the final result looked disappointing. But internally, the race may have revealed something much more important. The speed was real. And that changes the pressure completely going into this weekend. Because now Verstappen is no longer arriving as an outsider hoping to survive. He is arriving as one of the main contenders. That sounds exciting. But it also creates a completely different kind of tension. Expectations. Every move becomes bigger. Every mistake becomes louder. Every night stint becomes a test people analyze corner by corner. And this is where the emotional side of the story starts getting fascinating. Because Verstappen does not actually need this race. He already has Formula 1 titles. Global recognition. Financial security. Legacy. Most champions at that level avoid unnecessary risk. Verstappen seems drawn toward it instead. And maybe the reason is deeper than simple passion for racing. Because over the last year, something has become increasingly obvious. The Nürburgring gives Verstappen something modern Formula 1 rarely can anymore. Unpredictability. In Formula 1, drivers often know their realistic finishing positions before the weekend even starts. The fastest cars usually stay fastest. The strongest teams control strategy. Simulations predict almost everything. Nürburgring destroys certainty. Rain can appear in one corner and disappear in the next sector. Fog can trigger safety procedures instantly. Traffic can trap the fastest car behind slower machines at the worst possible moment. The green hell does not care who arrives as favorite. And maybe that uncertainty is exactly what Verstappen has been searching for all along. By the time the real 24-hour race begins on Saturday afternoon, Verstappen will already have gone through one of the strangest race weeks of his career. Because Nürburgring is not built like a normal Formula 1 weekend. There is no clean rhythm here. No simple build-up. Everything feels long, layered, and slightly chaotic from the very beginning. The event stretches across several days, starting with technical inspections for all 161 cars entered into the race. And honestly, that number alone tells you how absurd this challenge really is. 161 cars. On one circuit. For 24 straight hours. Formula 1 fans are used to 20 drivers sharing a modern track with massive runoff areas and constant communication from engineers. Now imagine multiplying the traffic several times over, then placing everybody on a narrow forest road filled with blind corners. That is Nürburgring. And this is where things become mentally exhausting. Because drivers are not only racing opponents. They are constantly processing information. Closing speeds, weather shifts, flags, traffic gaps, fuel windows, driver changes, mechanical warnings, fatigue. Every lap becomes a concentration test. And Verstappen's schedule before the race is especially important because of one terrifying detail: the night sessions. Thursday evening features the crucial nighttime qualifying run, where drivers experience the Nordschleife under full darkness. That sounds dramatic already. But the reality is even more intense. Imagine driving through a forest at extreme speed where your headlights only reveal tiny pieces of the road seconds before you arrive there. No city lights. No giant illuminated grandstands. Just darkness, barriers, and instinct. This is the moment where Nürburgring stops feeling like a racetrack and starts feeling almost alive. And for Verstappen, this part matters enormously. Because speed during daylight is one thing. But confidence at night separates real Nürburgring specialists from talented newcomers. That distinction becomes even more important on Friday, during top qualifying. This is the session that determines the starting order for the Elite GT3 category. And unlike many endurance races, starting position here genuinely matters. A lot. Because the opening hours can become pure survival. Cars from slower categories create traffic immediately. Small incidents can block sections of the track. Visibility changes corner by corner. And aggressive overtakes early in the race often lead to expensive damage later. At Nürburgring, one impatient decision can ruin an entire day. That is why Verstappen's approach this weekend will probably look very different from Formula 1. Less explosive. More calculated. At least early on. Because endurance racing rewards restraint in ways Formula 1 usually does not. Sometimes losing 1 second now saves an entire race later. And this creates a fascinating psychological challenge for Verstappen. Formula 1 trains drivers to attack constantly. To maximize every lap. To think aggressively every second. Nürburgring asks something completely different. Patience. Discipline. Control. Knowing when not to fight. And this becomes hardest during traffic. One of the biggest technical challenges this weekend will not actually be outright pace. It will be overtaking slower cars safely for hours without making mistakes. That sounds easy until you understand the scale. A GT3 car can approach slower traffic with massive closing speed differences. Sometimes the slower driver moves predictably. Sometimes they panic. Sometimes weather changes grip levels instantly. Now repeat that process hundreds of times through the race. Fatigue turns tiny decisions into dangerous ones. And this is where Verstappen's natural instincts may become both his greatest weapon and his greatest risk. Because Max has built his Formula 1 career on confidence in wheel-to-wheel combat. He trusts reactions other drivers hesitate to attempt. Usually, that makes him terrifyingly effective. At Nürburgring, it can also become dangerous. Especially once darkness returns Saturday night. Because somewhere between midnight and sunrise, the race changes emotionally. The crowd becomes quieter. The forest becomes colder. Headlights cut through fog. Drivers stop thinking about victory for a moment and start thinking about survival. And this is where the green hell earns its reputation. Not during the first lap. Not during qualifying. But during those long nighttime hours when exhaustion starts whispering into every decision. That is the moment Verstappen has been chasing for over a year. And this weekend, he finally gets to face it.